Hey everybody, Paul Turn here from thediscipleproject.net here in November on Election Day. Hopefully that you went out and voted today. If you did not and you're watching this, polls are probably going to be open until about 7 p.m., so please go out and vote. Today I want to talk to you about choosing the right camp speaker and my 11 essentials to choosing that speaker, because it's November and you may be thinking, man, what am I going to do for that D now? What am I going to do for that camp? What am I going to do for this retreat? What am I going to do? How am I going to choose this? Now, you may be one of two youth pastors out there. One, you've never had a speaker before and you go, what should I be looking for in the camp speaker to give my kids the best experience at their camp or retreat? Or you may be the youth pastor who says, well, you know, you're judging last year and you're saying, well, they did a good job. I'll bring them back just for the sake of consistency and my kids like them and all that kind of good stuff. Or you may be saying, maybe there were some elements that were missing there. How do I find those missing elements and how do I grab hold and make this camp even better than it was before? Well, let me offer you my 11 essentials and then you decide maybe what was missing last year or what you're looking for this year. Number one, play and eat with the campers. Now, that doesn't mean that a speaker, just hangs out all the time with kids, but I think it's so important that there's a certain sense of humanity between the speaker and the audience. I think, if a speaker goes and does canoes with kids or plays a round of paintball or simply walks around the camp just to kind of greet and say hi, I think what that does is creates connection between the campers and the speaker to have a more connected service that night, so that the speaker, some speakers, they're gone. They're just the camp speaker and they show up for that thing and that's it. But they don't really engage outside of the service with the campers. And I just think that's such an important ingredient in having a camp speaker to add to the overall camp experience. Number two, stay within the allotted time. I know there are speakers, and you're a youth pastor, so you may know this as well. Sometimes speakers can go down rabbit trails. They can try to be too funny. They can, claim that God is doing something, right? And so extend the service like so long that it's the next day. Whatever that may be, I just think if you have a speaker has an allotted time, it's important for that speaker to stay within that time. Yes, God's going to do that part, but you build, as a good speaker, you build God time. You build the God time into your talk time so that kids can be able to receive what you have shared. The third thing is make messages visual and relevant. Nothing worse for me than a speaker who is who doesn't use visuals or isn't relevant. I think those two things go together, because if a kid is sitting there trying to grasp onto something, it's the speaker's job to give them something, whether that's pictures or whether that's something physical. Maybe it's like driving a car into the chapel. Or maybe it's like riding in a motorcycle. But I just think the visuals are so important. Now listen, you don't have to go so over the top, but I just think the speaker, whoever that speaker is, ought to do all that they can to bring a sense of relevancy and visual, to break down and to engage and kind of give maybe a little bit of a wow factor to that week that kids would not get maybe somewhere else. The fourth thing is this, is including students in the message. I love to bring a kid up. I love to, and it's not necessarily about a game, but using illustrations I think are super important with kids, because when they feel a part and connected to the message, they're going to remember more. And that's what camp's about, right? Camp's about remembering what God is doing in the midst of you. And sometimes when a kid is involved or multiple kids are involved, I love to have them read scripture. I love them to have come up and share testimonies. I love to do all those things because it helps connect those kids to that camp experience. They want to come back the next year, and they are remembering the things that they're participating in. Number 5, have fun. Have fun. It's okay to have fun. Sometimes it's okay to be silly. Some speakers are so intense and so serious and so, stiff sometimes that they disconnect from their kids. They may do their job in preaching the message, but it wasn't very fun. on my nights, well, on the end of the week, I love to do what's called victory nights. And we take a victory lap around, not physically take a victory lap around the camp, but we take a victory lap around camp in the sense of kids sharing testimonies with great music and worshiping God. And we have a great victory night for all that God has done. And that is fun. The sixth thing is have a servant's heart. I just think it's so important that a camp speaker can work within the framework if there needs to be changes and or maybe make an announcement, or can we do this as part. Listen, I think it's about flexibility. I think it's just about being flexible and saying, okay, how can I help? Right? Listen, it's not to detract from what the main mission and the role is, which is to speak, but at least be flexible in some things and not feel like, that my time and all that. I'm there to serve you, the youth pastor or the pastor at your retreat, and I want to be flexible in those things. So being a servant and having a servant's heart is super important to me. Number 7, set up leaders to have good discussions. You see, when I have a camp, and I speak at the camp down in Florida, I make sure that I have something for counselors. There are counselors that are there that, who work with the kids. And sometimes counselors are hired and kids come in and they're assigned to a group. Sometimes churches bring their own counselors. But no matter the scenario, I try to make sure that the counselors have a part in that service, right? I set the leaders up, whether I set them up at the altar time or I set them up in the cabin time. And whether that's me just giving them a sheet of questions or actually writing the devotions sometimes, I try to give them something to discuss and engage with following the service, rather than just having a one-off and say, well, that's over, that's done. There's the continued discussion of the message. That's called discipleship. And so I try to help leaders disciple their campers the best way I can. Number 8, hang around after service. That's right, hang around after service. So many times speakers come and they go, and there's, diva speakers who, they don't want to hang around, they don't want to do things. They just sort of get off the stage and they go to some green room somewhere, and then that's it. I like to hang around. I like to answer questions. I like to congratulate kids on their commitment to Christ that they made, or maybe pray with another kid, or whatever it is. I can answer questions, whatever it may be. I try to be around after service so that kid can know that guy that just got up and spoke, that guy really cared about my soul. He didn't just get up and speak a message, but he spoke the message because he was speaking to me. Number 9, say something interesting. Listen, if a kid is bored during my message, that's my fault. I take a good 90% of the responsibility of that because my role is to say something interesting. How I say it, why I say it, to say something that's going to engage a student and draw them into the message, to paint a picture to where they can see themselves in that scenario, whether that's through just stories or whether that's through the illustrations like I'd mentioned earlier. Whatever that may be, my job is to make it and say something interesting so that kid is not bored. I want to make the gospel, and I want to say something interesting that will get that kid thinking in his heart, that could be me. And number 10, keeping it fresh. That's right. I want to keep things fresh. In the 15 years that I have been speaking at camps and retreats and so forth, don't think I have repeated the same message twice. I try to keep things fresh. Sadly, I have been to camps, maybe you have too, where the camp speaker spoke the same message they did last year. And maybe half your group checks out and says, oh, didn't he do this last year? I try to make sure that I have messages that are on point and they are fresh and they are new because I've had kids come for a week of camp, and then I would ask, how many of you are coming next week? So I was speaking 2 weeks in a row, and 2 people raised their hands and says, I'm going to be here next week. Now I thought to myself, well, maybe I get a chance to speak the same message just for the sake of ease and say, well, okay, nobody's going to be here next week, but 2 kids are going to be here. And I said, listen, Lord, those 2 kids are going to be here and I want to give them something fresh. So I went ahead and said, Lord, give me a message for next week so that these 2 guys will not have to hear the same messages and disengage. So I want them to be engaged, so I have new messages for you. Last and not least, number 11, respect the audience. Let me tell you what, I respect teenagers very much. I respect their ability to listen, their ability to engage. I respect their ability to think through things. Listen, they're not perfect, but I do respect them, and I give them that respect when I speak. I talk up here. I don't baby them. I don't talk down to them. I keep it top shelf so they'll go ahead and reach up further versus just having some low-hanging fruit that they can grab onto. I kind of make them reach a little bit so that in their hearts and their minds, so that they're engaged. They feel like they're challenged. They feel like, hey, this guy really trusts us with this information. He doesn't have to baby us or coddle us. I want to think about this. I want to think about my commitment. I want to think about what he's going to ask me to do at the end of the service and whether or not I want to respond. And first of all, the Holy Spirit's going to help do that, but I also help set that up by simply respecting the audience. Now listen, those are my 11 essentials of a camp speaker, and those are the things that I try to embody. So I hope those have been helpful to you. Please go ahead and leave your comment down below. What, in fact, do you look for in a camp speaker? Maybe some of those that I mentioned. Maybe there's something I missed that I need to go ahead and level up in my own life, in my own speaking, and saying, oh, I need to work on that. But if you are looking for a camp speaker, can I encourage you, there's a link down below that will take you to a page where you can ask me questions about things like dates or things like that. I would love to be your camp or your retreat speaker, your DNOW speaker, whatever it is. I would love to come and make an impact at your event if I can. So please go ahead and leave those comments. Hit the link down below that will take you to a page where you can go ahead and connect with me there. Also, if you're a brand new guest with us today, thanks for being a part of the community today. Be sure to hit the subscribe button right over here somewhere or at the end of the video, and you'll get videos like this in your inbox on a regular basis, right? And also, if you're a regular, thank you so much for being a part of this community. I so much appreciate you being here, and I hope that I bring you value every time I get on here. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button. That lets me know you like the video and you want more of them like those. So, but that's it for today, guys. Appreciate you guys so much. Hit me up if you need a camp or retreat speaker. I would love to come and make an impact at your event. We'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.